Welcome to This Week Those Books, your rundown on books new and old that resonate with the week's big news story. This week's big story is that Notre Dame, the landmark cathedral in Paris, reopens after more than 5 years of internationally supported reconstruction work following a devastating fire. The glittery reopening with 50 world leaders comes after a darker period of wrangling over tradition versus reform in its restoration. Magnum photographer Patrick Zachman's newly published book offers an illustrated official history of Notre Dame's reconstruction from that first moment in April 2019 when he visited the deeply damaged medieval church. Through a gaping hole above caused by the collapse of the 315-foot-tall spire, you can see a section of the sky and some scaffolding. One image strikes me, that of chairs left in place, which lets you imagine the worshippers who were here shortly before the fire broke out. The scene is upsetting. This week's books include an Italian architect argues that successful restoration, like gardening, needs careful pruning and grafting, and a novel that recreates that time when churches took a century to build. The backstory is that France engaged in a furious debate over the right way to rebuild Notre Dame's roof and spire after they burned down. Hundreds of artisans, architects, and other experts from around the world helped the reconstruction effort, and 2,000 oak trees, some of them up to 400 years old, were sourced from forests around Europe. And according to Rebâtir Notre Dame de Paris, the public body responsible for the cathedral's restoration, 340,000 donors from more than 150 countries have donated around $895 million. The issue was whether to reconstruct the building as it had been built in the Middle Ages or the way that it had been reconstructed in the mid-19th century. The first of this week's books is New Buildings in Old Cities, Writings by Gustavo Giovannoni on Architectural and Urban Conservation, by Gustavo Giovannoni and editors Stephen Semmes, Francisco Saravo, and Jeff Cody. Italian architect and historian Gustavo Giovannoni's philosophy of preservation, bargaining between new and old, has not been available to read in English until now, though Giovannoni's ideas on urban conservation are enshrined in today's international agreements, and his theories on urbanism, environmentalism, resilience, sustainability, and the revival of traditional building crafts are entirely in tune with our times. Giovannoni, who played a leading role in Rome's conservation movement, the Artistic Association of Connoisseurs of Architecture, rejected the notion that urban redesign must showcase a rupture between past and present. His view of conservation employed botanical metaphors, so the city became an orchard requiring the rational and prudent work of pruning and grafting. And a quote is, "Monuments are made to be robust and complete, not to remain maimed or be deformed by inorganic superimpositions that disturb their harmony." And our next book is Cathedral, a novel by Ben Hopkins. This book is a first in that it's a filmmaker's first novel. It's a historical fiction about the building of a cathedral loosely modeled on Notre Dame in the concocted German city of Hagenberg during the 13th and 14th centuries. Hopkins starts the book in the year 1229 with the story of Reddit Schaffer, a peasant who joins the party of stonecutters, masons, and carpenters working on the cathedral. It is an extravagant and exquisite vision and will take the better part of a century to complete. So Redditch offers the brilliant idea of sourcing wood for the steeple by planting trees that will be ready for use some 60 years later. A choice quote, "They are still building the Our Lady in Paris. And when did they begin? I don't know, 60 years ago." Redditch dries the tools with a rag. Then there's time to plant new trees for the steeple and wait for them to grow. I hope you find This Week Those Books useful, thoughtful, and a conversation starter. It's a small operation here, and support from readers like you helps keep this news literacy project going. We're now more than 10,000 subscribers in 117 countries. And in the season of giving, please consider supporting this news effort so that we can keep it freely accessible. If you can't pay, just email thisweektosebooks at substack.com, and we'll give you full access, including to the archives. No questions asked.